Hello, I'm Laziena, and today I have with me my good friend Roger, and we are having some meaningful conversations about the things that we've experienced that are important to us. Roger is my favorite exploration buddy, and I believe that he has a treat for us. What you got?
Well, we are going to talk about some pearls.
Yes.
The first one, like I said, or you told me, is number 22.
Yeah.
And it goes make a pause between I'm feeling something and I'm doing something. So, when
Yes.
in your life have you had an emotional reaction and then a knee jerk response and then thought about it later and felt bad about something you said or something you did or somebody you insulted or you hurt somebody's feelings? And then you think about it afterwards and you say, gee, I wish I didn't say that. Or, gee, I wish I could have said something different. Well, that's what this pearl is all about. When you feel something, take a deep breath, hold it, wait about a minute or two. And then, if you really have something to say or do, then you could go ahead and do it. But it gave you a chance to think about it.
Yeah.
Zina, when in your life have you had that happen to you?
Oh, Roger, how long do you have? So many examples. I would say that this has been my response from the time I was like in my teenager up until I was in like 34, 35. Even, yeah, it was, it was a thing that got me into a lot of trouble, for example. But I guess the way I would like to share that is I would always get angry. I would always get angry. I would blow up, lash out, whether it's family member, friends, but definitely my children and my ex-husband felt the brunt of that. Angry, then I would push away and go isolate into my room and then not talk to anybody for 3 days. And then when I calmed down and then I realized like, man, I was the one who yelled. If I hadn't said what I said, then the relationship, the situation would not have been what it is. So I guess I could use more of an example. When we moved from Ohio to Florida, we were living close to my mom, and I would get so upset at the kids. I would yell at them, scream at them, start throwing things, and just really carry on in such a way that I wasn't proud of. And my ex-husband would be like, Laziena, you might be right in what you're feeling or what you want to say, but it's the way you go about it that makes you wrong. And so at that point, I would be like, okay, when you guys notice that I'm doing it, can you call me back? Can you like say these words? So I would like snap out of it. But that didn't work. And I would continue to do that over and over. And I'm noticing it. I'm like, man, I just yelled at how are they gonna trust me? And I keep doing it over and over. And that was the thing that stuck to me was how am I gonna do it differently? What is it that I can do differently? I felt so hopeless. I just felt like this is who I am and I'm just always gonna be this way and there's something wrong with me. I didn't know that, that was an avoidant attachment style kind of behavior. I didn't know it was protest behavior. I didn't know it was an unmet need. I just kept lashing out. And then of course I'd come back with an apology, but the damage was already done. The emotional impact was already done. My kid felt screamed at, yelled at, not good enough. My husband felt completely lost and doesn't know how he can solve the situation or help me. And he felt attacked as well. And I'm over there like, but don't you see? I'm sorry now. Like we should be okay. Everything's okay. But that damage happened for a good 9 years.
Yes, I can see that. How have you made amends with them?
Well, that's where the repair language came in. First of all, it was taking the TLC course really gave me a chance to see how I was parenting for my needs versus theirs, but also the accountability part of how did I create this and actually practicing the work. The more I went inwards and softened towards myself, that's when I started to see the greater damage that was done. So it was, having those conversations and letting them know that I really take ownership of how I behaved and I can't change the past, but I can make a promise to do it differently going forward. And I apologize whenever it comes up, whenever I feel that guilt or that shame within me, or I see how it's affected them in their real life. I'll sit with them and apologize, like truly from my heart, and let them know. Even my ex-husband, when he was in prison, I went to see him and I acknowledged my part in the relationship of how I showed up, and he certainly didn't deserve a lot of how I treated him along with my kids. Sit with them, look them in their eyes, and hold their hands, and just being in that authentic space has been really transformational for our all of our relationships.
That's good. So for me, my children are now 40 and 36, but
Mhm.
when they were in elementary school, they were picked on because, my wife is black, so they came out as mixed color. And the school that they were in was mostly white upper class children. So they were picked on because of the color of their skin.
Mhm.
And they would come home and complain, and I had never dealt with this as a child because I grew up in New York City in public schools, and every school had, from Hispanic to Black to Oriental or Asian or everything in one class.
Yes.
No one ever picked on anybody, and I was like fearful, how do I do this? And so I didn't make any mention of it. I just swallowed it, and my kids suffered. And it wasn't till 15 years later when I took TLC that I learned that I should have just sat down with my children and listened to what they had to say, because that would have been an emotional beginning for feeling what they felt, the shame that they felt from being picked on, and the sadness that they felt. And I didn't do it when they were children, and I tried doing it, but when they're in their 20s, they're not listening as much. So
Yeah.
even now my son is 40 and we talk about it, and he still has this anger and resentment that I didn't go to school and stick up for him or even listen to his complaints. So I should have felt something and then done something instead of just feeling something and walk away.
Yeah.
So the important thing is not only to make a pause, but to actually do something also.
Right. And I find that that compassionate piece is what makes a difference after that pause in that moment.
Yes.
Yeah. I think when it comes to the pause, it could be seen in different ways depending on where we are on our healing journey or the journey, and being able to sit on the other side of regret and remorse and self-forgiveness. There's a different layer of meet being met or meeting ourselves and our
Hmm.
children or the people that we care about, because when we're meeting in that vulnerable space, we may have a different perspective than the other person than our children do. But when we're
Yes.
looking at it from their lens, this is an emotional impact, and they just need to be acknowledged and validated. If not, it ends up carrying over and becomes a resentment. And that's speaking from my own experience of processing that.
Yes. And now you're a better person for it because you
Yeah.
processed it.
Yes. And didn't allow it to fester.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to another pearl.
Okay.
This is one that I added to my list a few days ago.
Okay.
And it goes, you never appreciate how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. And it doesn't only mean strong with muscular strength, but it could be fortitude and determination and getting through it, whether it's a school assignment or an emotional upheaval in your marriage or a problem with your children or your parents, but you never appreciate how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have.
Yeah.
So, when in your life did you have that episode where you had to be strong and there was no other choice?
Oh, Roger, there was no other choice. Here is this big event that happened that broke up my entire family. I became the sole breadwinner, the parent that needed to step up. And this was what, about 6 years ago when my marriage broke apart in the way it did. I didn't expect that it was gonna happen like that. I didn't have the plans that in case like my marriage didn't work out, what was going to happen. And I, for the, from that day until now, the version of me that emerged from that, I sometimes don't even know where I got the strength from. Yeah, it was a really big upheaval. I think that it really took me by surprise. Like the rug got pulled out from under me in such a way, and it was me trying to tread water, even
Yes.
to survive, to stay, to not only get through it as a woman, to get through it as the a parent, to get through it in the workplace and still build from that space without letting it crush me. And it did crush. It was crushing, but I still, had to get through it. I got to get through it too.
That's true.
Yeah. It was not an easy thing to go through at all.
Well, this happens in everyone's life, and you need to appreciate the strength and fortitude that you have even before you need to use your strength.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I was gonna say, I feel like I wouldn't. The thing that I always say is that if I hadn't gone through those experiences, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't get to this version of me. Like I needed to have those moments in life, um, to be on the other side of it. But it's still like I I know now that I can get through anything. I know now that without the shadow of a doubt, I have so much strength. And in those moments, I knew I had it, but I didn't feel it like how I feel it now.
For me too, when my father died, it was a very heavy thing for me.
Mhm.
And I had to console my mother and console my brothers, especially one of my older brothers who was very close to my father. And I can use the term, he was an emotional wreck. And so it was on my shoulders to support him, even though he was my older brother.
Yeah,
And usually it's the older brothers who console the younger ones, but I was the adult in the room and I didn't realize my fortitude until the event occurred and I had to support my family, my mother and my older brother.
yeah. That's a lot of emotional labor too for you to have to be the one to
Yeah,
carry.
because
Yeah.
I wasn't able to process my grief. I was
Right.
so involved in supporting other people that it wasn't till 6 months or a year later when I was able to grieve for my father's passing. So that was something
Yeah.
that was for me.
And I get to have this really awesome, compassionate version of you because of that experience. But at the time, the acknowledgement of what you had to sacrifice, you put your feelings away for someone else, and that wasn't fair to you in those moments, but it was what you
Right.
had to do.
That's right. All right, so let's do another pearl. This is number 27, and I'm going to change one of the words
Sure.
and just say your emotional memory is like a book of SNH green stamps. I don't know if you know because you're from Guyana,
Yeah.
but here in the United States, when I was a kid, every time you pulled into a gas station, not only did you pay and get gasoline, but the owner of the gas station would give you these little stamps called SNH green stamps that
Okay.
you paste into a book. And when the book was finished, you brought it to a little store for the S&H Green Stamp company, and then you could get from a mix master or an iron or ironing board or something. And so you would purposely go to the gas stations that gave out these green stamps
Okay.
as opposed to not giving them out. That's what an SNH green stamp is. And
Mm.
so I say your emotional memory is like a book of SNH green stamps. You keep pasting in more and more emotional episodes until it's full. Then, out of nowhere, you open the book and the history of each emotional episode is released.
Yes.
So you can have emotional memory from childhood, from being a teenager or an adolescent, young adult. All of these memories, emotional memories, keep accumulating.
Mm.
And then when the last straw hits, the straw that breaks the camel's back, and you open up your emotional memory, and all of these thoughts and memories and emotions just come pouring out. And it's difficult if you don't know how to handle them. So when they do come pouring out, you can journal, you can have therapy, you can go and confide with someone you love, but your emotional memory is different than your
Yeah.
intellectual memory. Because your intellectual memory you can work out and say,
Yeah.
well, this happened, like I crashed my car, so next time I'm going to stop earlier or press on my brakes or not go as fast. Intellectual things you can manage.
Mm.
Emotional things are difficult.
Yeah.
So, what emotional memories come up for you?
There's so much to unpack in that alone, what you said, because it makes so much sense for me. So there, I feel like there's these layers to that. It would, let's say I was in a relationship and I would constantly get upset whenever I'm not feeling heard or I'm not feeling understood. And then I would get mad and I would yell, and then that would cause a disconnection. Then I'm at work and I am working on a project and my boss doesn't really give me the acknowledgement or kind of push back a little bit on it, then I would get mad and I would yell and, I would not behave in my best way. So when that keeps, what I learned is that underneath those responses, that's a surface level of it. That's an emotional response. But really underneath it, it's saying back to a memory where I was a child and I had this event that happened where I really believed that I wasn't loved or cared about. And
Mm.
so that emotional memory is like a scar. And now every time I'm in situations where I'm not feeling like I belonged or feel dismissed or I'm not feeling heard or understood, the scar would open up. Not
Yeah.
scar, this wound would open up and I can at that point nurture it like an actual wound, change the bandages and allow it to heal, give it what it needs to heal. And then over time, as I continue to nurture that wound, it can become a scar. But I didn't know all of that. And in the times whenever
Mhm.
there's an emotional reaction, it's really deeper than what I thought it was. It wasn't that it was my behavior. Underneath the behavior is this emotional need of needing to feel met or understood or whatever that case is, and it's up to me to go back to that. The way that I changed the bandages from the scar is going back to my inner child and reparenting in those moments. And the reparenting can look like journaling, finding safe spaces, being able to release it from not only intellectual but feeling it as well. So I understand that this is where this emotional response is coming from. Now I give myself a chance to feel it in my body and
Mm.
I acknowledge that in this moment the need was that I didn't feel belonged. And I can be able to give that to myself and then move through it. And
Mhm.
then over time practicing that with intention, it no longer becomes that explosion, so to
Yeah.
speak. Yeah.
Mhm.
I hope that made sense.
Yes,
Um,
it does. It does.
yeah. How did it show for you?
Well, emotional memories come up like my wife would say, "You're just yelling at me because you're really yelling at your mother, but she died 10 years ago, so I'm the one here getting yelled at." And it's something like that. And same thing the other way. I'll say to her, "You're just screaming at me, but you're really screaming at your stepfather. But
Mhm.
he died a long time ago, and I'm the one standing in front of you. So, you're getting my emotional response to my mother, and I'm receiving your emotional response to your stepfather.
Yeah.
Our little children are just fighting with each other. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
something that without therapy or without TLC or without anything, you would just keep yelling at each other and not
Mhm.
understand why.
Yeah. And that's one of the main reasons too why the relationship repair language came about. For me, it's because like once we understand that that's what the response is coming from, we can choose to do it differently because while there are dynamics in a relationship is that's a recreation of our childhood and our parents and the
Hmm.
resentment or whatever we don't even know that we have towards our parent. We don't get a chance to see what's underneath our spouse or our children's behavior too, because
Yes.
why are they yelling? Why isn't that wound healed? And I know there's no such thing as heal, it'll come up, but like being able to go to it and do it together as a couple or in togetherness with each other is
Yes.
another layer of relation of meeting each other's relationally instead of you're yelling at me because you're yelling at your stepdad, and I'm yelling at you because I'm yelling at my mom. I've recreated that you're my mom, I'm your dad, and then we have to separate. It's now looking at it on another level that we can meet each other for who we truly are and be a part of that reparenting process as well.
Yeah, well, the thing is also, I can intellectualize
Mhm.
and I can say, yes, I'm yelling at you because I'm angry at my mother. But if I don't heal the emotional level,
Yeah.
I'll just keep being angry and know why I'm angry, but not be able to change my actions until. So, what I had to do was I had to do 7 times 70, forgive my mother for her constant criticism. And I had to do it twice. Once, and then a few years later again because it just kept popping up. And you
Yeah.
know something? If it pops up again, I'll do the 7 times 70 again. But I've
Exactly.
forgiven my mother, and intellectually, I know where my mother was coming from
Right.
because my mother was brought up during the Depression. And so any little thing she was picked on by her parents,
Mhm.
like, you can't even leave a scrap of food on the plate because we have no money. So then, she then recites the same things that she heard as a child to her children.
Mhm.
And you end up parenting from what you've heard as a child.
I
So
agree.
that's the story. So I had
Yeah.
to emotionally forgive my mother in order to stop criticizing or yelling at my wife. And it worked.
Yeah, and what you're sharing is very important because I think this is sometimes where the disconnect happens for me
Mhm.
is when we are intellectualizing versus emotionally processing. That is a big disruptor in our connection with each other. We
Yes.
don't get to. I've like yesterday, for example, I was angry and I knew I was angry. I just like I could process that by myself, but I was like, you know what? Let me ask for support. And I find that sometimes the response I get is, well, why are you still angry? Like why how can just fix the root of it? And that to me is intellectualizing because yes, I
Yeah.
can go to the root of it and I can cognitively understand what this is, but I haven't emotionally processing out. And we know the power of emotionally processing something out or what happens there because even in forgiving my mother and my father, one of the things that I learned is that I also created that I was also angry. What the thing that I was upset with my dad about and I had so much resentment towards was also the very thing that I was doing too. So I in turn had to forgive that and forgive myself as well in that process. And that lightens the load. That's what makes those wounds become scars. And I
Mhm.
think it's really difficult to explain that to someone without having an experience of it.
Correct.
Yeah.
So another pearl that is somewhat similar, but do you know that a mushroom is really a very large organism that lives underground, and it could be miles and miles wide. And so we just see the mushroom caps that pop out from the dirt.
Mm.
So my pearl is that emotional trauma, or actually childhood trauma, is
Mm.
like an underground mushroom. Things pop up in all distant places, but they all belong to the same monster. So something can happen to you as a child, and it'll pop up in different things. It'll pop up in my obesity
Mhm.
because I find food as comforting for the childhood trauma. Or it could turn out to be something as drug using or alcoholism or physical abuse with a spouse,
Mm.
because these are all this mushroom that has the sprouts coming out in distant places. So
Yeah.
we like to say that it comes out sideways, but it's really the same monster, and that has to be emotionally treated, or else these mushroom caps will keep popping up in different aspects of our life. Can you, like for me, it's my obesity
Yeah.
that I definitely can see that that's one of the aspects of my childhood trauma from my mother and the controlling aspect of my father.
Mhm.
So can you say something that
Oh, yeah.
happened in your childhood and it's
Yeah.
coming out sideways as an adult?
So many. I mean, that's the thing that I love learning. So before I went to TLC or Real, it was like, okay, I understood that I was passing on generational trauma. I understood how my behavior affected everybody. Did therapy, mindset training, attachment style training, all of these trainings. So when I went into TLC, I was like, oh, so what could they teach me more that I didn't already know? I already have the cognitive understanding. I know that
Mhm.
I can choose to do it differently. Well, once I realized how deeply rooted the emotional trauma from childhood is, it changed everything. It changed how I look at my work, how those wounds pop up in friendship, how they pop up at work, in my personal life, in relationships, romantic relationships, a relationship with my children, just about anything, even how I present myself, even when I go to networking events, when I'm chasing, I have that chasing energy behind my business adventure versus the desire, the purpose. It's in so many things, and it all is rooted back into those moments of childhood. And for me, my core belief was that my father didn't want me. So I wanted to feel chosen by men, and I would behave in ways that was out of integrity in order to feel chosen by men. But it all came back to me needing my father's love. I
Yeah.
had resentment towards my mother, so that made me, it affected my relationship with women. I
Yeah.
didn't respect them, and in turn it was because I didn't respect myself. So
Mhm.
it all it's in the words that I use, it's in the posture that I have, it's in everything. And as much as there was a time where I was so resistant to that, like, yes, inner child stuff matters and it's important, but also people have relational responsibility. And as much as that is true, it is still up to me to make sure that I go back to those wounds and nurture them. Change
Yes.
the dressing, allow them to have room to breathe, give them the medicine that they need. And that medicine may look like being angry, being sad, whatever the situation needs, but the reparenting of it all. So oh my gosh, there's so many examples of how that shows up. But I would tell you, even as a business owner, entrepreneur, someone who's living in their purpose. So I recall there was a time when I was first going to networking events. I was
Mhm.
so scared. I was like, why am I so scared? Like it freaked me out. I felt so uncomfortable. But when I really sat with it, my little girl never did that.
That's right.
I never had somebody that took me in a place that didn't make it. Most of the time we go anywhere like kind of meek and just hiding behind mom or not
Yes.
knowing what to do. So it was like to go into the space that with other people and talk to them was very intimidating. But that wasn't coming from I'm a positive woman. I am very extroverted and this personality is very vibrant and I love me. But
Yeah.
why couldn't I, this very powerful, empowered woman, couldn't go to a networking event? I literally sat down and I pretended my little girl was next to me and I went back to a memory when I was on stage and it was like around elementary school and everybody had these signs with the letter of the alphabet and everyone had a phrase they use with their sign. And mine was, I will put the sign up, U is for unity, unity is strength. And I remembered seeing my mom in the audience and how happy she was when I did that. And so I held my little girl's hand and I was like, well, you got me and we're going to do this together. And so if I didn't go back and kind of like nurture that memory and bring it to life, I would still be scared to go to a freaking networking event. And how many other people end up doing that where people want to start their podcast or they want to write a book and they couldn't do, and I'm saying they, me, I couldn't do it because I had all these fears and cared about what people thought of me and needing validation, but really it just needed acceptance from my mom and dad.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of,
Yeah. So let's do one more
yes.
because we got 8 minutes before the time is up.
Yes.
This is number 16.
Okay.
The most important math to learn is how to calculate the future cost of today's decisions. And this is not only financial, but it's relationship wise,
Yes.
emotional wise. So, the future cost of today's decisions. You may decide to not have boundaries and let people walk all over you. And the future cost is that you'll have low self-esteem and feel bad, or other things also. The decisions you make today have effects for tomorrow, and those are the costs. So financial, like you help people with finances, you
Yeah.
know that if you go to Starbucks every day and spend $6 or $7 at the end of the month, that's money that you could have put toward groceries.
Right.
And at
And
the end of
it's
the year, or people who smoke cigarettes are spending thousands of dollars every year on cigarettes, and
Mhm.
then they don't have money to buy food for their family.
Yeah.
So the decisions you make today. So can you tell me an example of a decision that you made in the past that is affecting your finances today?
Well, the biggest decision was forcing myself to learn about money and learning about finances. And that
Mhm.
unearthed it a lot because I read this book called You're a Badass at Making Money. And what I love about this book is that at the end of every chapter, there's activities to do. And so I was listening to the audiobook. I had the physical book and everything, but I would like go in and make sure that I write it down. And a couple things that came up were like oh, list 5 beliefs that you learned about that you have about money. Where did they come from? Who taught it to you and all of that. So that really made me see how unaware I was about financial decisions and how scared I was. So that took me back to my childhood. What did I learn about money? Scarcity mindset was a real thing, is a real thing. So I had to reframe that. So I, in the past, ended up having financial debt that was so much I had to file for bankruptcy because I was just spending. Oh, my husband is the breadwinner. I'm the spending money. Get credit cards, spend, spend, spend. Not really utilizing the money in the way that could grow more or benefit or anything. And then if someone came to me and said something like, "Hey, I want to show you something," I would be so resistant to it because all my money fears would come up, and I would go into that lack mentality without realizing how I was spending money. So once I was able to learn about money for myself and going to a lot of my core beliefs about it, last month I got a phone call that I was debt free. And it only took two
Beautiful.
years because I made different decisions and different choices that came from an empowered space that didn't come from fear or anyone else's projected fear, or of course my own fears. And being able to completely turn that around is something that it proved to me the law of cause and effect. It proved to me that being able to consciously choose and do something, I could have the outcome that I wanted versus when I was making it from an unconscious decision and
Mhm.
it didn't show up in a way that was was productive for me because then I ended up being $41,000 in debt and having to
Wow.
spend $25,000 on a divorce and taking care of my family. And now I'm a single woman in a world that I don't know how to even function in, and that added so much to my own overwhelm and my own chaos. So it was a way for me to take control back of my life
Yes.
consciously, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's both intellectual and emotional.
Yes.
So you have to tie them both together because
Hmm.
you can make it an intellectual decisions, but emotionally you're still spending money because that's an emotional need you have.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
need to tie together your intellectual decision and your emotional decision.
Absolutely. I think you really hit the nail on the head with this topic, these topics today. It's
Hmm.
not just intellectually, also emotionally. It's so true.
Good.
Yes.
So next Friday we have Real TLC. So
Yes.
I will be doing some cooking.
Ah, not for me
My
this
because
time.
we have Michael coming over.
Yes.
So I cook ahead of time, as you know.
Yes. He's in
And
for a treat. I'm so jealous.
well, you can zip over also if you want to spend.
I know, right?
Okay,
Well,
but
I
I won't see you in Atlanta because my little girl, my daughter, is having our second grandchild, and she's gonna deliver on Thursday, the 28th,
that's awesome.
and then we're gonna stay with her a few days till she's
Hmm.
out of the hospital. So
Yeah.
I won't see you for the next Atlanta.
No.
But enjoy. and
Yes, that'll be
I'm
a new experience.
yes,
Yeah.
rooting for you.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you again for joining me. And it's been a couple weeks since we got together, but I love these conversations. They're truly amazing, and I love the way that you can really get down to the nitty gritty of the core root of the problem. So,
Thank
and your perspective is always enjoyable as usual. So, thank you so much.
Okay, thank
And
you, and have a very nice Mother's Day that's in
thank
2 days.
you. Yes, thank you,
Enjoy.
Roger. I'll see you soon.
Take care.